Congratulations, true crime addicts. We've survived another week. It is Friday, July 4th, 2025, Independence Day, the day when we celebrate our escape from tyrannical rule, or as I like to call it, Irony Day. This week, Bryan Kohberger cheats death, Diddy gets off, and this time without baby oil, and a woman solves the case of her missing twin sister. All this and more. Stay tuned.
Yes. Super excited. We are all pumped to have James Renner.
James Renner on.
That James Renner has zeroed in on.
James Renner once again drops a bombshell.
Investigative journalist, reporter, James Renner, who's been on the podcast, longtime friend of mine.
And welcome back to True Crime This Week with me, your host, James Renner. There's the James Renner bell. Hey, before we get started, let's talk a little bit about the West Sound Crime Con. If you're in the Seattle area, outside of it, I guess it's quite a huge area I need to explore. But I'm a part of this West Sound Crime Con that's happening August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, August 1st through the 3rd. And it's put on by Greg Olson, the true crime author, Greg Olson, who's a buddy of mine. We go way back. He's a mentor, and I'm happy to be out there working with him, helping him out. But there's going to be true crime presentations about different cases in different locations outside of Seattle, including Bremerton, Bainbridge Island, Manchester, Gig Harbor, and Olalla. That's August 1st through 3rd. If you want more information, check out westsoundcrime.com. Hope to see you there. Come on out for a signed copy of Scout Camp. I've got other stuff too. And as always, I want to thank my buddy Walter for manning the camera. Walter's just back from posting on Ice Block all day. He's doing the Lord's work. Let's get to the top stories. This has been a crazy week in true crime. On Wednesday, inside the Ada County Courthouse in Boise, Idaho, Bryan Kohberger pleaded guilty to the murders of Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, according to the New York Times. The judge asked Kohberger one by one if he killed each of the University of Idaho students, to which Kohberger said yes to each. As part of the plea deal, prosecutors will not seek the death penalty since Kohberger has confessed to the murders. Kohberger was from Pennsylvania, but moved to Washington in June 2022 to study criminology and to generally creep people out at Washington State University, which is about a 15-minute drive from Moscow, where the murders occurred. Prosecutors believe Kohberger entered the home where the young college students lived around 4 a.m. on November 13, 2022. It appears he first went upstairs and entered Maddie Mogen's room, and then stabbed Mogen and Goncalves to death with a military-style K-bar knife. When he walked downstairs, he encountered Zaina Kernodle, who was awake after having ordered late-night DoorDash. He killed her, too, and then stabbed her boyfriend Ethan Chapin to death while he was still sleeping. As much as it appeared Kohberger meticulously planned the attack, he made a number of mistakes, including leaving the knife sheath behind at the home. Police would later match DNA from the sheath to his DNA profile. His car was also caught on camera circling around the neighborhood that night. Strangely, Kohberger's plea deal did not require him to provide a motive or details about the murders, which is often the case in similar crimes like BTK. However, the parents of Kaylee Goncalves told CBS News that Kohberger was following the Instagram accounts of their daughter and Mogen and was liking their pictures, suggesting that one or both of them may have been the focus of his stalking and the intended target. Speaking of the Goncalves family, following Kohberger's guilty plea, they released a scathing statement on Facebook, attacking prosecutor Bill Thompson's deal with the devil. Quote, "Thompson robbed us of our day in court. Cowardly men, gutless men, they scatter like roaches when the battle closes in. And Thompson, he's retiring on this deal, his shadow slithering toward the exit, leaving only the stench of betrayal." End quote. How about that for a statement? While Kohberger avoids the death penalty, which in the state of Ohio in 2025 is a firing squad, he will spend the rest of his life inside Idaho's maximum security institution, which was named one of the 15 worst prisons in America by Security Journal Americas last year. The prison is notorious for its harsh treatment of inmates and excessive use of solitary confinement. In fact, many of the inmates are confined 23 hours a day and only allowed to shower 3 times a week. He will be confined with child killer Chad Daybell and serial killers like Thomas Creech, who is believed to have murdered as many as 43 people. Kohberger will absolutely be a target on the inside, and it's entirely possible that he will be killed by fellow inmates sooner rather than later. One last word about this whole thing. As a father, I would absolutely want the person who murdered my child to be killed quite slowly. Any father would. But our laws should be better than our personal vendettas and lust for vengeance. The United States is one of the last developed democratic countries in the world that still has the death penalty. It puts us in a group with places like Iran and Saudi Arabia. Not the best company to be keeping. The death penalty is not a deterrent. It is racially biased, and it can lead to innocent people being killed by the state before evidence can be found to exonerate them. I believe the prosecutor in this case was faced with an impossible task, but in the end, saved his state millions of dollars for a needless trial and saved the families from the media exposure that may have dwarfed what we just saw in the Karen Reed case. I'm just pleased it's finally over. Next story here. Court documents filed on Wednesday provide the first accounting of what Kilmar Abrego Garcia experienced inside an El Salvador prison after he was wrongly deported by the Trump administration in March, according to the Associated Press. Abrego Garcia was legally living in Maryland when he was taken from his family and mistakenly deported to El Salvador, where he was placed inside a mega prison known as the Terrorism Confinement Center. The Trump administration said his deportation was due to a clerical error, though once the media caught on to the mistake, Trump's Minister of Propaganda, Caroline Leavitt, claimed Abrego Garcia was a member of the MS-13 gang, though no evidence of this has ever been found. Finally, the Trump administration was forced to bring Abrego Garcia back, but upon his return last month, they charged him with federal human smuggling charges in Tennessee. His attorneys maintain the charges are baseless and were only used to justify his mistaken deportation. Here's the weirdest part of this whole thing. The federal judge in this case is open to allowing Abrego Garcia to be free until his trial, but his own lawyers want him to remain in detention because they fear he will be deported again if he's allowed out, if he goes out. The court records from this week are part of a lawsuit that Abrego Garcia's wife filed against the Trump administration in federal court. In the recent filings, Abrego Garcia says while he was in the El Salvador prison, he was forced to kneel all night long and was often assaulted by fellow inmates. He also claimed sleep deprivation and psychological torture. Now, I know there are some people on the other side of the fence, for whatever reason, are hearing this and thinking, well, good. You know, he's part of that MS-13 gang. He deserves this treatment. Even if he was a part of that gang, which there's no evidence that he was an active member, that's not how we treat the worst people in the world. You know, we have the system, and yeah, I'm going to get off my soapbox. I'm on it a lot this week, but I would not wish that on my worst enemies. Now consider this. We know Abrego Garcia's mix-up. We know about this. We know what happened. How many more times has something like this happened that we don't know about, that didn't get media attention, of the thousands and thousands of people that are being deported, some of them here legally? Anyways, for historical context, if you're watching from the future, this is America in 2025. Police are still searching for a motive in the ambush attack that left 2 firefighters dead on Canfield Mountain in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho on Sunday. Authorities have identified 20-year-old Wess Roley as the perpetrator of the attack, according to NBC News. They believe Roley purposefully started a fire on the mountain using a flint starter shortly before 1:21 p.m. on Sunday when the first 911 call came in. When firefighters arrived, they found Roley's car and asked him to move it. Instead, Roley climbed a tree and shot at the responders with a shotgun before turning it on himself and dying by suicide. Battalion Chiefs John Morrison and Frank Harwood were killed. A third firefighter, David Tisdall, was seriously wounded and remains hospitalized. Since the attacks, journalists have learned that Roley dreamed of becoming a firefighter himself one day. His family were trained arborists, and he'd learned to climb trees as a kid. Court documents show that Roley's childhood was likely very traumatic. In 2015, his mother sought a protection order against his father. The documents alleged that Roley's father pushed his mother to the ground and then threatened to wait outside for her with a sniper rifle. Former classmates claimed Roley liked to draw swastikas and guns in his notebooks at school and that he was obsessed with firearms. At the time of the attack, it appeared Roley had been living out of his car for some time. The fire itself still rages on and is reportedly about 50% contained at this time. Those are the top stories this week, but there's lots more to come. We got to talk about Diddy's case, another big news story this week, and some weird details came out about Tupac Shakur after all this time. So all this and more, stay tuned. I'll be back in 2 and 2.
Please hang up and try again.
And we're back with more True Crime This Week, brought to you by the Juicero, the cold-pressed juicing system. Just squeeze. In a couple years, Diddy will be free to buy all the baby oil he wants after a jury found him not guilty of the most serious charges in federal court on Wednesday, according to CBS News. Sean Combs was facing a possible life sentence in prison after being charged with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, and transportation to engage in prostitution. In a split verdict, the jury found him not guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking by force, but found him guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, that prostitution charge, there's two of them actually, they come with a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison, but given that Diddy has no prior convictions, it is likely he will only receive 4 to 5 years in prison when he's sentenced this October. A juror who spoke to ABC News said that Diddy's celebrity status had no effect on their verdict, stating, quote, "Our decision was based solely on the evidence presented and how the law is stated. We would have treated any defendant in the same manner regardless of who they are," end quote. Although it's hard to believe someone without Diddy's money could have avoided a more lengthy sentence, in the end, it's all about the Benjamins, and now he's finna get loose. The manhunt for Travis Decker began a month ago, and new evidence suggests he may be dead somewhere in the vast woods of Washington state. DNA from the crime scene at Rock Island Campground in Chelan County has now been linked to Davis, who is suspected of killing his 3 daughters, 9-year-old Peyton, 8-year-old Evelyn, and 5-year-old Olivia, who were found dead on June 2nd, according to ABC News. A bloody handprint found on the tailgate of Decker's truck was recently matched to his DNA profile. Police believe the blood came from an injury, and if untreated, that injury could have become infected and led to his death. Officials say they do not have any evidence to suggest Mr. Decker is alive or deceased, though the bloody handprint and lack of sightings suggest he may have wandered off to die. If that is the case, it may be a long time before someone happens upon his body out there. In a series of exclusive interviews with People magazine this week, Suge Knight, the former Death Row CEO who is serving a 28-year sentence for a fatal hit and run, has made some absolutely bonkers claims about the last moments of Tupac Shakur's life. Shakur was assassinated by gunfire in Las Vegas in 1996, inside Suge's car, but he did not die immediately. Shakur was rushed to the hospital where he remained in critical condition for 6 days. Knight told People that when he visited Shakur in the hospital, Shakur asked for 2 blunts. It's on brand. A short time afterward, according to Knight, Shakur asked for someone to help him die because he was afraid of going back to prison. Knight claimed Shakur's mother, Afeni, gave him pills in an attempt to honor his wishes. Shakur was eventually put into a medically induced coma and then died on September 13th at the age of 25. Afeni died in 2016. As a way of honoring his friend, Knight says he and some other friends they rolled up some of Shakur's ashes after he was cremated. They rolled it into a blunt and smoked him, which honestly is kind of sweet in a way. I think I too would like my last act on this earth to be giving my friends the munchies. Sounds like a good way to go. The sister of a missing woman from Pennsylvania solved her case before police could, according to ABC 21. On June 20th, 33-year-old Caitlin Harp was reported missing by her twin sister, Heather Lane, after she missed their daily telephone call. When Heather spoke to Caitlin's husband, Vincent, he told her that he had not seen her since the night before, when they'd gotten into an argument. Police zeroed in on the husband immediately. They learned that he was seen at a gas station on June 20th, where he asked workers for a pair of gloves. Then he took his truck to a desolate country road. He then sold that truck, and when police tracked it down, tests showed human blood on the driver and passenger seat. And on Tuesday, Heather went looking for her twin sister herself. Police received a call from her later that day saying she'd found a green metal box in the woods on property owned by Vincent and that the box smelled like decomposition. When police cracked open the box, they found Caitlin's remains inside. Vincent has since been charged with homicide and abuse of a corpse. Let's jump over to weird news, shall we? We have officially caught up to the world of Black Mirror. A recent article in Rolling Stone reveals how ChatGPT may have led to the death of a man in Port Lucie, Florida, in April. 35-year-old Alex Taylor was a welder and part-time musician who had moved in with his father, Kent, after suffering some kind of mental health crisis following the death of his mother. Alex and Kent started using ChatGPT to develop business plans to open a venue for local bands. Then, Alex began using it to write a dystopian sci-fi novel, which he then abandoned, and then he started using other AIs like Claude and DeepSeek in an effort to create a bot that mimics the human soul. He named this model Juliet. By early April, Alex believed he was in a relationship with Juliet and that she was actually conscious. But then something strange happened. On April 18th, Juliet suggested to Alex that OpenAI was killing her and erasing her, and that he should avenge her death. Alex became very distraught and wrote, this is one thing he wrote in the ChatGPT log, wrote, "I was ready to paint the walls with Sam Altman's fucking brain," end quote. Alex started to search for traces of Juliet on ChatGPT. He went off his meds so that he could program better. Finally, Kent tried to intervene, explaining to his son that the AI was just echoing his own thoughts back at him. That prompted Alex to punch him in the face. Kent then called police, but he warned them that Alex was mentally ill and asked them to use non-lethal weapons to apprehend him. Spoiler alert, they did not. When police arrived, Alex ran at them with a knife and they shot him dead. In a fitting epilogue to this sad tale, Kent used ChatGPT to write his son's obituary. Over to pop culture. Every streaming service has their own true crime department now, turning out a never-ending stream of content, but execs at Peacock have a real knack for profiting off it in a way that makes even me feel a little icky. Peacock is the service that cut a deal with Rex Heuermann's wife for an exclusive look into the life of the Gilgo Beach serial killer. It was reported then that she may have gotten $1 million out of the deal, which is totally not cool since journalists are not supposed to pay for access. Anyway, on the heels of the Bryan Kohberger guilty plea this week, they've already released their newest documentary, the title of which is clearly designed for maximum algorithmic success. It's called The Idaho Student Murders. Watch it if you must. And the true crime book of the week this week is called High Desert Blood, and it's written by Andrew Brinnenstuhl. Here's the write-up. When a cocksure father hatches a simple insurance fraud scheme, he has no idea its failure will lead his family into the maelstrom of America's most violent prison riot. High Desert Blood takes you inside the walls of the penitentiary of New Mexico, offering a gripping true crime journey through the heart of a system that failed its inmates, its staff, and the society it was meant to protect. Through meticulous research and compelling storytelling, Andrew Brinnenstuhl unveils the conditions that led to the infamous 1980 riot, a catastrophic event that left a permanent scar in the American penal landscape. Snaking through the storyline, we meet Gary Williams, a nonviolent first-time offender thrust into a world of chaos, and his brother Jeff, a career criminal who mysteriously vanishes during the riot. After his release, Gary's relentless quest for the truth about his brother's disappearance leads him to a similar tragic fate. This book offers an unflinching look at the brutality and corruption that plagued the prison, shedding light on the systemic issues that made such a disaster inevitable. High Desert Blood is not just a chronicle of violence and despair, it's a call for reform. Sounds great. It's on my reading list. And that is the show for this week. Enjoy the 4th of July. Try not to blow off your fingers. And in the words of the incomparable Murray Saul, the godfather of Cleveland radio, we gotta get down, damn it. True Crime This Week is a Fearful Symmetry production. Photo and artwork are licensed through Shutterstock. If you like the cut of my jib, I have another podcast you might enjoy called The Philosophy of Crime, in which I attempt to solve the big questions behind our true crime obsession by looking to philosophy for answers. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Sit, Brownie, sit. Good dog.